you start off by kind of giving us the landscape of the issue of how many children are needing to be adopted?
Um, we have we have a lot of children. I think we're around 800 children in the state of Tennessee that are currently in need of an adoptive home, a little over 800. Um, and so that's what we are working with the children that are in our foster care programs or residential type programs to try to find permanency for them. And our average age is usually 14 and up. So we're seeking for, long-term placements for them to have families.
And how long are they typically in the system?
It varies. I mean, some children can be in for, depending on the services they need or placements that we have. So, um, ideally, it would be the shortest amount of time possible to find permanency, but they have to be in a foster home for at least 6 months to adopt. So, it's also part of the process of how long, like when we have to go through to either terminate parental rights or that they're surrendered. So it's varying timelines per child. So.
And why is it so important to kind of talk about this issue, especially with November being National Adoption Month?
Well, like we said earlier, we have so many children that are currently waiting for adoptive homes, and we want children to have long-term stability. They need to have families that are going to be there to support and guide them throughout every step of their life. Just because a child turns 18 and, is technically aging out of custody, that doesn't mean that they still don't need, support and love and care and guidance throughout all the next steps of their life. They need to have, families for holidays and families during the difficult times and learning how to, live independently. And so I think it's really important for kids to have that grounding and that sense of belonging by having a family.
And what does adoption outside of the foster care system look like?
Um, once we go through the process of adopting, during this process, we help families establish like the services and supports that they're going to need post-adoption. So we try to get everything set in place so that families have as much support as possible. We try to set up like what kind of ongoing counseling or ongoing supports and things like that that they're going to need. We try to put those things in place so that, they can be as successful as possible. We don't want families to feel like they've been left alone with children because, as we know, a lot of our kids have, experienced some challenging things. And sometimes, those things get reactivated during life changes and age and things like that. So we want to make sure families are, have that support that they're going to need ongoing.
And can someone become a foster parent with the sole goal of wanting to adopt?
Yes. I think you come through like with our agency, you come through and we kind of go through a lot of the training process. But one of the things that we do when families are coming into our program, if they're open for foster to adopt, then we try to find out like what is the age range of the child that they're wanting, they feel is going to be best in their home. What are some challenges they, feel like they could parent with support and help, or things that they feel, might not be best for their family. So we try to do as much matching in the front end as possible to help families, just we want them to be successful and we want these stops to be the last stops for our kids.
And is there any cost associated with adopting?
No, because children are coming from state custody, we're able to utilize funding sources to help pay for like the attorney fees, birth certificates, things like that. Obviously, there are ongoing expenses as being a parent, but there's also, some added stipend and support through that as well for most of our kids until they're 18 or 20.
From your perspective, what does it mean to these children, especially at the age of the average age being 14, for them to get adopted? What have you seen in from your expert vantage point?
I think it's huge. I think your kids, they want to have that sense of belonging. They want to know that they have a supportive team around them. I think sometimes they don't even recognize what that support's going to look like, and having somebody help them and guide them. You know, we don't. we want people to be in our life to help us. And I think sometimes our kids sometimes feel like they're islands. And then when they come into a family and then they all of a sudden have this support that's going to help guide them and, strengthen them to help them be more successful.
And is there anything else that you think that people watching this later might need to know about this?
But there is a tremendous need. And I think sometimes we have to, people will talk about becoming a foster or talk about adopting. I think it's just do it. Just, take the time to learn. I mean, there's so many avenues you can foster. You can provide support for families who are fostering and adopting. You can, help be respite options. You can do things like that because their families, sometimes I think the way society is now, we have families that don't necessarily always have, all of their support in their community with moves and things like that. So just figuring out how to be a support for uh, the foster and adoptive community and just taking that leap and doing it.
And you mentioned that there is this tremendous need, and you've laid this out throughout the interview, so the question might sound a little obvious, but talk about what Youth Villages is doing to kind of combat that tremendous need.
We have classes that are starting. If you go to our website, we have classes across the state for families to become certified. That we will walk you through that process. We provide education and support. One of the things that our agency does is we also have in-home support while you're fostering. We have counseling that comes into the home up to 1 to 3 times a week to provide support for families. We have other people in our agency that help, with the training, with keeping your homes up to date, like as far as any things that you need. And we are out there trying to raise the awareness and, get these classes out there for families to just take that leap.